Good afternoon, everyone. Today's webinar is to go through the use of our new functionality, not new to everyone, but new to certain clinics, which is called the eFax. Today's objective is to go through the tool and also understand how to configure it, but also how to use it. The plan of the agenda today will be to go through these two sections separately, and then to go through some of the questions that we received through our support calls and the questions that we get most of the time. And I will address anything that will be left apart at the end of the webinar today. So let's start. To begin with, I'd like to maybe get a better understanding of what is the eFax. An eFax is essentially the same as a normal traditional fax machine, except that you don't need to, physically go to the fax machine to send a document. So you can do it through MYLE, and because MYLE is a web application or web software, you're not required to be in any specific place or physical location to have access to it. So in these times with the COVID situation, it gets quite useful to have access to a electronic fax machine. As we've said, maybe to begin with, we should start with how to set it up. So you have to go, once you log in MYLE, obviously, you have to go through the setting tab above. And near the middle of the section here, you have a section that's called signature. And the first step would probably be to upload a new signature. So you need to, first off, I guess it's to save an image of your electronic signature. There are multiple ways to do this depending on which tool you use. And I'll give a few examples of tools that we suggest. For Apple users, the Note application would be quite useful. For anybody using Android, the Google Keep app or the Samsung Note would also be useful. For the physicians or any professional that who uses the touchscreen computers, Google Keep would particularly be useful in this case. Anybody with a trackpad or a mouse could also draw something in Paint, the good old Microsoft Paint. The idea is that you want to get an image that has a white font, a white background, and that you can crop everything else around it. The objective is to get a picture that looks a little bit like the bureau, something like this, an image like this one here. I would also invite you to visit the MYLE tab that's on the upper left corner of your MYLE session. And there's a section that's called MYLE Help. If you select this, you get to this section here that can be used to configure your eFax. The web fax or fax web, whatever you want to call it. The first section or selection, I would invite you to click on it. And there's a lot of information that would help you here to configure it properly and making sure that it respects the criteria for a perfect signature. So to visit this section again, I just want to go through the process. Either you go through the upper left corner of your MYLE session once you're logged in, and you visit the MYLE Help button in the center of the page, or again, even before you log in, there's a Help button also beneath. My browser is in French here, but don't mind it. For anybody using an English browser, the button here would say MYLE Help. So it leads you to the exact same section. So either or, It could be useful for the setting up of your efax, or again, any other functionalities that you're wondering. Sometimes it could be useful to have a quick look. It's quite intuitive and easy to use. So going back to the configuration, step one would be to upload your new signature and have it look like this. Once that's done, you're one of the three parts completed. The second one would be to enter a new PIN. So right above that image, you click on the button enter or edit a PIN. I had already a PIN, so this is why they asked me a new PIN. Essentially, the PIN has to be 4 digits long, and it will protect your signature before applying it. Once you're done, you click change for it to indicate PIN activated above here. So again, you upload a new picture, you enter a new PIN, and the last thing to do, not the least, is to click again on the little checkbox here to the left of the virtual fax number that should be aligned with the site of your clinic. For clinics or GMFs that uses that have more than one site, one clinical site, it's possible that there are a few names listed there. Just select the one that corresponds to you and your clinic and just click again in the little box. It's something that we tend to forget. Again, maybe to address here, one question that we get a lot is, what's the eFax good for? Are we able to send and receive faxes electronically? The response to this is no. Yet only the sending of faxes electronically would be what you would be looking for, essentially, in MYLE. So the reception of eFaxes is not yet a functionality available in the platform. Okay, so understanding now that we have a new signature, anybody who wants to use the eFax needs to go through this step. Either medical or clerical staff, administrative staff, whatever you want to call it, anybody who wants to use the tool needs to go through this. Obviously, the signature will be useful to certain of you, like, you know, a certain proportion of individuals in the clinic, specifically medical staff, either nurses or doctors, but even the clerk at the entrance would probably need a signature of his own to be able to fax something electronically through MYLE. Now, there are two types of documents that can be sent. Some that require the signature and others that don't. When I'm talking about things that require the signature, I'm talking about obviously prescription, exam requests, consultation requests. So let's start with these, and we'll get a better understanding of how they work. So I get in the patient's file, I get in the note, all the way to the bottom in the plan section, the prescription. Let's start with that. So when I open up a new prescription, all of the active medication would be aligned here to the left. This is a blank patient for the example of today. So I want to prescribe a new any pill. So as a reminder, when we are prescribing something or using the prescriptor, the important thing to do is not to align one medication and click one of these buttons below to the right. So we want to complete and making sure that all of what we want to prescribe is aligned in the center of the page. So if I have multiple things to do, and I could, I could add a few different things here. I want to make sure that they all are aligned in the middle here before I click anything else. Now, because I want to use the eFax, and since I've set it up in settings correctly, I have a new button that shows sign here. So I'm going to go once again through all of these buttons here and making sure everybody understands them correctly. If you wish to modify anything with your prescription, you need to do it before you click any of these buttons. Otherwise, it will synchronize with the DSQ. So this is why sometimes somebody clicks on one of them and they have the issue that it's already over, it's done, it's in the note, so they have to undo what they've done to make any corrections. So as a reminder, make sure that everything is complete and you're happy with what you see in this section before clicking on any of this. So it could be useful to go through your note and go back on the little tab here to the right to go back to the note. And once you're comfortable with your prescription, you go back on the PX button, get here, and then you click on one of these below. Now, if you click on prescribe, it will synchronize with the DSQ, but do nothing with your prescription. If you click on print, it will synchronize with the DSQ and essentially present you the printing page for your prescription. Us, in our case, we'll use sign. So once I click on this, the preferred pharmacy that has been entered in the file, in the patient's chart, will be presented here automatically. So again, this is one tip that could be useful if you want to document correctly to make sure that you save a few clicks down the road, is to ask your support team to, ask these questions and document them and making sure that it's correctly entered in the patient's file. If you don't see anything in here, or for this case, the patient doesn't want to go through that pharmacy particularly, there's a fax register that we hold in this section here. So I would suggest you to type the brand of the pharmacy. I have the name that is coming out of my. You want to make sure you go through the labels. Or if I say Jean Coutu, for example, and maybe the street name would be something useful, or either the name of the pharmacist, or either the fax name if you know it by heart, until you get to the point where you want. So once you click on the choice there, it will be presented to you this way. So again, this is a button or a fax registry that we hold. I don't believe there exists one yet for the entire province of Quebec. So we hold this registry. If you have any modifications to notify us, or you want to tell us that there's a new pharmacy to the next corner of your clinic or anything like that, make sure you write to us at support@medfarsolutions.com, and you can notify us of any changes that require this registry, and we'll make sure to correct it for future uses. So to go back to our example here, our Linda Burton, our patient, is going to go through this pharmacy for this time once. So I will unclick the set as preferred pharmacy. If we didn't have anything new in her anything suggested in her file, I could add one just through this and making sure this box here, this checkbox, is checked. Now, lastly, before I'm able to send this fax, I have to enter my 4-digit PIN that will apply my signature on the prescription. Now, if I go through the prescription quickly, it has the entire information on your pharmacy in the center, not on your pharmacy, on your clinic, pardon me, including your fax number, your real fax number. Then you would have all of the information and contact information of the patient down there, your prescription, all allergies, intolerances, or any side effects would be applied to this prescription as well if they were entered in the patient's file. The pharmacy, who's the destinator, essentially, will be aligned in here as well. You have the prescriber certification to make it perfect, and you have your name and license number as well lined up there. So once you're all set with this, you simply click on the fax button, and it will tell you that the fax has been sent. Now, this little window here does not confirm that the fax has been received. It only tells you that the fax has been sent from MYLE. Now, many things can happen with the fax along the way, so I will get to that part a little later in the webinar. But for today, I just want to make sure that we don't confuse this window here with an acknowledgement of any kind. So this is how we go through the prescription process and using the eFax. Once I've, prescribe it, or I'm back to this section here, the sign button is again available to me here, along with the print button. If I need to re-sign or refax the same prescription for any reason, I can simply click on here. I don't have to go through the whole prescription process again, which would end up, duplicating the information in the DSQ. So we want to, make sure we don't go through that path. But essentially, this is all I had to say for the prescription. Now, maybe let's go through another section that would require an actual signature to be applied in a document. So we were talking about prescription earlier. The exam request or consultation request would also be another section available to you. So I wouldn't go through one or the other. They're both pretty much the same. I'll use the exam request for a specific reason, which I will explain in a second. So you're very comfortable with this section yet. This is not anything new. So I want to, I don't know, I don't think I have anything in there. I will go for physiotherapy, even though that would be a consultation request, just for the example of the day, with my notes, description, blah, blah, blah. So I write it down here. Once I'm done and comfortable with this, I have the sign button once again. So I can simply click on the sign, and the window again will be presented to me. Particularly with this section, which is the exam request, there's a registry that can be modified for all of our clinics in Quebec. So what do I mean by that is, instead of having a registry controlled by Medfar, you can add the most frequent numbers or fax numbers that you would send, and have it be part of this registry here. So when you go through it, you can look up anything that's been entered in the registry. As you can see by the names presented here in this example, all of the clinics in Quebec share this registry. So I would ask you, when you want to add something using this little button here, all you have to do is fill up the red areas that are presented to you, so the name and fax number. But if you do enter a name, please be specific. So it's cool to say the McGill Hospital, because we know there's only one in Quebec. However, if you say CLSC or the hospital, it's not really clear which one it is, and it might be confusing for you and your staff down the road if they want to refer to the same place. So be specific, put a name, a city, anything you have in there that makes sure that they can help you go through the search. This is if obviously you want to add it to the registry. If it's a one-time thing, then all you have to do is put a name and a fax number. So I could send it to test, and put fax number on my own here. Put my PIN, again, my 4-digit PIN that will protect my signature. My signature is on there. Everything is on there. I click on fax and it's done. There we go. Okay, so now we've seen two sections. The other one would be the consultation request, which is exactly the same as the exam request. However, there's not the registry down the line. So again, if I go maybe quickly here on this example, and I click on sign, to the contrary, you would have a name in here and a fax number, but there's no option for you to add anything to the registry. So just to let you know. So these are the areas where the signature will apply. Obviously, we're part of a progress note, so all of what I'm talking about right now is mostly dedicated to the medical staff. If you're looking for something else, maybe a lab request, imaging requests, or anything else, depending on with who you're dealing with, and mostly it's for private services, or either hospitals will require you to use a specific form to do the lab request or send any request. So this is why instead of having to use one of these 3 sections, you'll have to go through the form section. So once you're here, you can go through the lab requests and look up whatever you're looking for. So let's say I want to go for a pathology requisition at the McGill. So you have the form here that will automatically fill your information and the patient's information as well. So you will use all of the purple boxes or the section to type down and fill the document. In certain cases, you will have to sign it. Now, it's different than what we've seen previously with the signature that will automatically be applied to the document. So there's no pin here that will protect your signature from being there. So you need to understand that if you want to apply a signature on anything in here, in this case, in this section here, there's a little pen here to draw on the form, which would allow you to complete the document this way. Now, I've done this with my mouse. For anybody that has a good trackpad or a tactile screen, a tactile display, I would invite you to simply use that. It's obviously much better than me with my mouse. But the restriction here is that you have to use it this way if you don't want to print it, sign it manually before going to the fax machine and trying to send it, on the traditional way. Again, I want to make sure of another thing here, and by any means, Medfar is not suggesting you to sign electronically that way before printing a document and giving it to somebody in person. So what I mean by that is, if for a specific reason the patient is sitting in front of you and you want to print that form and giving it to him signed, we would strongly suggest you to sign it with your actual pen, to print the version before signing it physically. If what you're trying to do, because you're working remotely or whoever you need to send this to is not here, then you can go through this step here before using the efax function. So again, I want to make sure this is clear. Same goes for all of the prescription, the exam request. Make sure that you sign physically a document if it needs to be printed and given by hand to somebody. So once I'm comfortable with my form here, I can simply save and close, which brings it back to me in the note here. Now, I don't have the fax button before I get to this point, and it's completely normal. However, once I'm done with my form and it's sitting in my note like that, it is available in the little printer section on the upper right corner of my patient's file. So again, my form is sitting here. I can access it through the little printer section on the upper right corner. And if I click on here, it will bring me to this section where I have access to everything that has been completed in MYLE for the patient that we can print or fax. So anything you're trying to print or fax that's available in MYLE for the patient will be sitting in that section. Same goes for the forms, same goes for notes, same goes for documents, labs, anything, growth charts, anything you're trying to print will be sitting in that section. So again, because I've configured my signature previously at the beginning of the webinar, I have a fax button that shows up here. If it wasn't the case, the fax button would simply not be there. So everything in here is sitting under the description column here, so you can access it here. All of the most recent documents will be sitting on top, and the older versions will be down below. So as you go through the years with your patients, all of the new information will be sitting on top of the list. Like most sections in MYLE, there's a search tab that will help you go through what you're looking for more rapidly. Or again, to use the little gear button on the upper right corner to select everything that's been done between this date and this date, or you're looking for a specific category of document, specific type of document. So again, once you're happy with it, you can select one or multiple files, click on the fax button, and once again, you will be given this example. All you need to do is put the name and the fax number before clicking on fax. So we've seen really the two different things. So some sections, again, I want to go through this. Some sections are more dedicated to help the medical staff. And by that, I'm talking about the prescription, exam requests, consultation requests that are part of the note. Same goes for the forms, even though they don't use your actual signature with your pen. But once all of this is completed, specifically the forms, it becomes available in this printer, which means that you don't need to be part of the medical staff of the clinic to have access to this. So your supporting staff, whatever their function at the clinic, can go through here and help you fax whatever document that they want to access in this section. Now, there are a few different ways to increase efficiency when you try to go through this process. We've touched a bit of the prescription side of it when I was telling you that there are ways to document the preferred pharmacy for a certain patient. This is done in the patient profile section on the yellow little button here to the right. So again, in the tab in the middle of the screen that says Other, this is where your supporting staff or clerical staff will be able to help you document this. So the preferred pharmacy would be shown here. And the section Clinician, again, will be quite useful. If you want to add an external consultant or anything like that. So I know that my patient is going to see a specific doctor, is being seen by a specialist, either family medicine or others. You can simply add it on here. Once it's part of the chart this way, make sure to click Save. And again, this is something that you need to do only once, right? Once it's there for the use of anything. Either you're in the note and you're trying to sign an exam request, a consultation request. The beauty of this, whoops, excuse me, my example is not the one I wanted to show you. So if I go through here and I try to send different section, if I click on the fax button, the name of the consultant, the external consultant, will be presented here, which means that by clicking on this, it will automatically fulfill the required sections, and I can click fax much more rapidly. So there's a way to speed up the process of faxing if we document certain section, and by that I mean preferred pharmacy, external consultants. If we document it in the patient's file, we can go through the process much faster. Now, what I want to keep, I want to make sure is, how do we make sure that my fax have been sent? Is there an acknowledgement that are sent to us? Is there anything else of this nature that I can, get access to validate the whole process? The answer is yes. I will invite you to visit the Portfolio tab on top of your screen. So if you go through Portfolio obviously includes the notes sections, all of your requests, CRDS, etc., but specifically the faxes as well. So if you visit the My Faxes section, all of the faxes that you will have sent will be lined up here. So there's the patient's name, document request, the document date, recipient, date sent, date received, if it went through, who sent it, and the status of the fax. So we can see here that some of them have been sent and others have failed. From this section, you can resend them in case if they failed. What's nice about this section is that it's available to anybody. So obviously I'm part of the medical staff. If I visit this section myself, what I see is all of my faxes that have been failed. For your supporting team, they would go through this section and it would probably be empty. They would need to go through this little gear section to select your name and have access to everything that is failed or sent. Now, depending on the nature of the document, if it's a prescription and then I click resend, my PIN will be asked once again before I can fax it. So this is something more reserved to the medical staff if you try to resend documents of this nature. Otherwise, this is not a good example. Let me see here if, okay, so our summary, if you try to resend this, there's no PIN requested, so you can simply click on the fax for the document to go through again. So your supporting staff can help you go through this section. The other section of the portfolio that might be most useful would be the failed faxes. So all of what is failed lines up in here as well. And it also aligns with the button, the red button that shows below the portfolio tab above your screen. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you go through your day and you want to fax a document, a prescription, an exam request, you don't need to sit up here and look at the process in real time to make sure that the fax gets through. You can continue your day. If it doesn't get through, there's a red button that will show you here to inform you and notify you that a fax has failed. Now, the efax functionality in MYLE will try 3 times. So it will make 3 attempts to send the fax to destination. Now, there are multiple reasons why faxes fail. It's the same for a traditional fax. So what I mean by that is either the lines are more occupied, which is currently the case with the COVID situation. Sometimes faxes tend to fail. The line is occupied, there's congestions on the line, the server overall, the server connection is not as efficient as it could be. All of these reasons are things that could explain why a fax has failed. Maybe another one would be the number of pages that I'm trying to send. You know, if you're looking at a document that has 150 pages, it might be a bit heavy. It might, congest your fax line at the clinic, your virtual fax line, obviously. So, try to keep it to a lower level. And my suggestion would be maybe not go above 20, 25 pages. In case you have to do it manually. I think the success rate will increase. I know that it's quite rare that you have to send something above that anyway, but for people who do, my suggestion would, keep it below. It doesn't mean that if you're trying to send a document that has 200 pages, it will fail automatically, but it's a good threshold to keep in mind. So the idea is once they're part of the failed faxes, again, you can resend them from here, or if you lose patience and you're trying to, you know what, never mind, I'll print it and try to fax it manually or either send it by mail or anything else, you can simply click on the ignore button for the notification, the red notification to disappear. This is what will help you through and validate all of your faxes and making sure everything goes through as it should. It goes a bit. This is the end of the webinar and of the section. So we've seen how to configure it. All of it is done in the setting button. We've seen the type of documents that we can send. Essentially, everything that can be printed from MYLE is available for the fax as well. Now, is it something on the medical side, which will require a signature to be applied on the document? If so, it will be protected by a PIN. Everything else is allowed, is up for grabs by anybody at the clinic through the printer section of the patient's file. Now, I have a few questions that I'd like to go through that have been checked by that have been received quite a bit by our team. Can we erase all the fax logs? The response is yes. From the portfolio failed faxes, all you need to do is click on the resend here so they go through properly, or you ignore them so the button here disappears. But the section here will contain all of the faxes that have failed over time, and it will accumulate them here. So it's quite normal that you see a list here goes longer and longer over the years if we leave it as is. Can all types of medical professionals use the e-fax, or is it only for doctors? The answer is yes, everyone is allowed, taking into account the nature of the document. So I've repeated that multiple times, several times over the webinar, so I think everybody understood this part. How many pages can one send in one fax? Again, I would suggest to keep it below 20, 25 pages to be safe. But to make sure everybody understand this, an e-fax goes along the same requirements, the same requirements apply on an e-fax than a traditional fax machine. So the same goes. How can I change my PIN number? Good question. If I know my old PIN, I can do it myself in the setting tab. I can simply come here, click again on the enter edit PIN button before entering my old PIN and putting in a new 4-digit PIN. This way. If you forgot your PIN, please get in touch with the clinic's administrator or the super user at the clinic that have the administrative tab here, administration, I think it's called. That person will be able to help you out with this and reinitiate the PIN number for you. How can I add my signature? Well, we've seen the process here below. The idea is to to save it with a white background, a little bit like what we see here. There are multiple ways to do it. Again, I'll help you with the tools that we recommend. For Apple users, try to use the Note application. It's quite useful. For all of the PC users, whether on Android or on a actual PC, Google Keep, Samsung Note are applications that are quite useful again. And for anybody, whether or not you're on Apple or PC or Windows, the trackpad or mouse or little e-pen in Paint can also help. The idea is to have this finished product here. And again, for useful resources, go in the MYLE section, visit the MYLE Help, and click on the web fax or e-fax to visit the section documented by our team here. Other questions. Does the CMQ, the college, accept web faxes, or does the order of the OPQ accepts web faxes? Well, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I invite you to consult on the MYLE opening page. So if I show you again on the opening page, we've included a little article here for you to present you with the initiative that we went through recently in response to the COVID crisis. In this section here, if you visit it, there's an article link that is shared for your consultation, and it shows you that the CMQ, OPQ, and the nursing order or professional order I've put together here. So if you go click on this link, it will lead you to this section here, and I invite you to have a look. It will give them their suggestion and what they think of it. How and where can I track my statuses of faxes? Well, it's in the portfolio. We've seen that section, my faxes. Again, now, how can I remove the counter or failed faxes, dismissing them from this place or ignoring them again, as we've said? Why can't I see the fax option after adding the PIN number and my signature? Well, again, we said there are 3 steps when we're configuring our signature. It's from the setting tab. First step is to add the image. The second would be to add a PIN, and the third is to check. Once again, even though it looks like it is already checked, is to check again the little thick box here next to the virtual fax number. Again, one other question a bit related to this one here is, why is this number not showing the real fax number of my clinic? Well, it's a virtual number. It's normal that they don't align with the real fax number. Can they fax out to people who aren't medical professionals? Example, lawyers, housing, landlord, etc. The answer is yes. The eFax has the same properties as a traditional fax machine. Essentially, it doesn't know where you're faxing to. So if you have the fax number and the name of whoever you're trying to reach, you can go through that the same way than anything else. Can we receive faxes in MYLE? The answer is no. For now, we can only send faxes elsewhere. And what are the type of documents that can be faxed? Everything that's printable: notes, forms, requests, consultation requests, prescriptions, documents, lab or imaging results, medical summary, drug summary, growth charts, vital signs. Anything that you can print, you can fax in MYLE through the eFax. So I'm leaving some room now for questions that have not been addressed. So I'll go through them now. I have 4 right now that have been sent to me. First one by Mrs. Mizina. What app do you recommend to scan your signature from your cell phone? I missed that part. The apps are for Apple users, maybe the Note app. And again, I want to clarify, it's not to scan, it's definitely to save the electronic version of your signature. So there are certain restrictions to what we can do for it to be completely and 100% legal to the eyes of the college and other entities. So for this reason, we're recommending the Apple Note or the Google Keep, Samsung Note, etc. Or again, use the MYLE Help to have access to this. Can you please repeat how we can fax a clinical note after the doctor has signed off on it? Absolutely. Obviously, you need to be in a patient's file. So once you get in the patient's file, you get usually to this place. If the patient note has already been started, it's available here. obviously you can't fax or print a note when it's still ongoing. So you need to save and approve your note for it to be faxable or printable even. Now, I've done that. I get to this point here. There's a print and fax button allowed here, available for your attention here. Or because my note is completed, like everything else, it is available in the printing button on the upper right corner, and my note is sitting right here. So notes will align on here once you have them completed and approved in a patient's file, and you'll be able to either have a look at them by clicking on them, or making sure you select the proper note and then click the box, click on fax, and it's done. When I go into the setting for check off my fax number, I don't have a choice. So if you go to settings and you don't have anything lined up in here, it means that the fax has not been configured for your clinic yet. Which means you need to contact us for us to complete this session. Before you call us, and I'm talking to Mrs. Rossi, I would make sure to maybe refresh your session once again. So I will do that right now by using the little arrow on the upper left corner. So you log in. And you want to validate again that there's no fax number for you right here. But again, if that's not appearing right here for you, then you click on the MYLE button, call this number, option 0, to talk to somebody that will help you out. The radio button does not appear. Again, Mrs. Rossi, I'm not sure what are you referring to by the radio button, but I'm assuming that you're talking about the fax number here. So let me know if this answers it or not. Again, Mrs. Mizina, can we email a document like a lab requisition, for example, to a patient through MYLE? Will this be available? Will this be only available through the portal? And if so, when will portal be available? Thank you. Well, the webinar for today is to address the eFax function. For the portal, I have no understanding of when the initiative will be available to all. But yes, we do not suggest the email for two reasons mainly. One of them is if you are sending documents that have a medical nature to a patient through email, you need to understand that an email is not nearly as confidential as it should be, nor secured. So anybody can essentially hack an email and have access to this information. So this is why we're not recommending by any means to communicate with your patients through emails. Also, an email is bidirectional, which means that you can send information to the recipient and that person can respond and send you information as well. And because you're working in a medical environment, you kind of have a small obligation to keep track of what people are sending you. So this is a door I wouldn't recommend you to open necessarily. So this is why, in response to these two issues, the portal that we have at Medfar communicates unidirectionally, so you can send information to the patient, but the patient can't respond. So if he wants to address you with whatever, he needs to go through the same communication channel as before. So either call you, show up at the clinic, etc., etc. So this is why we definitely recommend this this section. So get in touch with maybe your sales representative, Mrs. Mizina, for MYLE to maybe give you more information with regards to when the portal will be available to you. So I hope it answers everyone's question. If for any reason there's something that was left unsaid or untouched, please, I will take maybe the 2 or 3 next questions. Feel free to write them to me. Otherwise, I hope you're all set, ready to start using the eFax. It should be helping you out greatly, especially since most of you are working from home, I'm assuming. So we want to make sure that you get all you need to go through your day. Doesn't seem to have any more questions, so I will leave it. I will leave you all to your day. Thank you so much for your attention. It was a great pleasure to have you on here. And oh, is there anybody else? No other comments. Oh, we have, yes, Mrs. Stanciu. Are you able to, I see that you've raised your hand, but are you able to write us your question, Mrs. Stanciu? There should be a little box for you to write us. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get your question, Ms. Stanciu, so I hope your question was addressed previously. So again, I thank you all for your time, and I wishing you a very good day. Bye bye.